Take a look at Nvidia. Okay, it was down earlier. Right now, it looks like it is on track for its fourth record close of the year. It's up 0.5% at the moment, but over 25 years, up 66,700%. Still, at least right now, the company's status as the AI chip king is being tested a bit as it lags behind semiconductor peers AMD and Intel. So you've got Nvidia year-to-date up 18%, but AMD's up 109%, and Intel, I mean, crazy, up 227%. But Nvidia's upcoming earnings, May 20th, could provide momentum, not just for the chip sector, but for the entire stock market, as Wall Street expects revenue for the fiscal first quarter to top $78.6 billion. That would be a 78% gain from just a year ago. Joining us now from the New York Stock Exchange on the ramifications of a beat, a hit, or a miss is Teddy Weisberg from Seaport Securities, live from the New York Stock Exchange. So what are you going to be watching from the floor of the NYSE ahead of this report? And I know it's next week, so it's a while from now, but nonetheless, it could be the catalyst either up or down for the market.
Well, I think the whole tech sector has been the catalyst for the market, Liz, for certainly the last 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, they represent a big percentage of the S&P and the composite, and that's what's driving these averages for the most part to new highs or levitating near new highs. So, you know, Nvidia is the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and clearly a lot of people are going to be keeping an eye on it.
Are you of the group that believes that this has gotten a little too hot very fast? Because there were people a year ago who felt that, and if they had sold, they would have missed out on a big run-up.
Well, absolutely. Unfortunately, nobody rings a bell, Liz. You know that as well as I do. Yeah. Nobody rings the bells and tells us when to, when it's time to put in a sell order. Right. And greed is, fear and greed. And greed's a pretty strong emotion. But clearly, that's where the momentum is. We live in a world of momentum trading. I mean, we see it every day, stocks up and down 10, 15, 20%. You know, this is not something we experienced years ago. We can't live in the past. We have to live in the present. This is the way stocks trade. I mean, who is to say how high is up? I would clearly say trees don't grow to the sky, and it's probably wise to take a little money off the table. But this is a trade that's worked for so many years now, at least the last couple of years, and why wouldn't it continue?
I don't want Tech and AI are also expected to be on the agenda at the Trump-Xi meeting on Thursday. CNBC.com's senior correspondent Evelyn Cheng joins us from Beijing to talk more about how China is catching up fast in the AI space. Evelyn.
Right, Emily. So as China's been releasing all these models, we've especially seen rankings such as Stanford's. Their analysis shows that China has really narrowed the gap with the U.S. when it comes to AI capabilities. What we've seen in the U.S. is that AI has entered a new phase, which is the cybersecurity aspect with Anthropic's Mythos. And while it's unclear whether or not China has the same kind of capability, there's definitely growing concerns about what AI safety might look like. And a state-affiliated think tank here, a director is saying that the issue of AI safety, especially how it's used in the military, could be something that Trump and Xi talk about in Beijing this week, at least setting the tone to revive those conversations around AI safety. There's also, though, the concern that AI, if it's not developed safely, if there's no rules of the road for development, that there's going to be spillover effects to the rest of the world. So definitely growing concern in China. But there's one interesting difference between China and the U.S. in terms of AI. And that's really, if you look at some of the public discourse in the U.S. and even Pew surveys, more Americans are quite concerned about the impact of AI, especially the negative impact, including on literacy. But in China, it seems like those same concerns are really driving people to adopt AI. We saw with the open claw craze, and also businesses trying to figure out how they can use AI to grow and survive in this slower growth economy. So it will be interesting to see how these two different attitudes to AI play out for the U.S. and Chinese economies. But I think for the summit this week between Trump and Xi, the bigger question is what sort of leverage China has, what concerns it has going into this summit. And a big question in there is, does it have its alternative to the U.S. in terms of Mythos capabilities, especially because it's shown that DeepSeek can run more and more on China-made chips and not Nvidia. Back to you, Emily.
An interesting day. Here's my take, right? The market obviously blowing off some steam, right? I mean, it's actually time to digest this historic 6-week winning streak. I want to put this in perspective, right? Because the stock market has had several 6-week winning streaks, but only one has been better than this one right now. By the way, we just edged out December 1962. That rally was in celebration of my date of birth, which is November. No, just joking. Anyway, you can see this has been an absolutely remarkable move here in the stock market. And really, it's to me, part and parcel of the secular rally. Now, according to Carson Group, what it means or the significance of the implications of this move is that within the next 6 months, typically the market is higher, on average 6.9%. And a year later, 17%. So the bottom line is, days like today, it's a sort of a digestion sort of thing. If history proves right, you'll be wanting to buy a dip real soon. Now, of course, on these down sessions, it opens up the door for all the doubts out there. Now, according to global fund managers, the biggest risk right now, geopolitical risk. Everyone's talking about this. Almost every list has geopolitical risk, followed closely by inflation. What I do find interesting, though, really, despite this huge rally, talk of a bubble. Look at this, folks. Only 5% are now saying it's a bubble. Not long ago, it was the #1 risk. Just 2 months ago, that was the #1 risk. So what happened? What happened to all the bubble talk? Well, earnings happened. Earnings. I mean, it's really hard to call this a bubble when earnings were so absolutely phenomenal. And despite the fact that these stocks are up, there's a major gap between how much these stocks went up and where the earnings are. So we're talking about a 19-point gap. Arguably, the market got cheaper as a result of all these great earnings. So where are we right now? What does this mean? I kind of like when these markets digest these big moves. I like to see what's happening beyond AI. I've been talking every day, of course, about momentum. Now, momentum is the biggest loser today, which is no big deal. It was due, right? Pullbacks you like. Ultimately, you want to buy the dip, but you also want to kind of gauge the appetite for the broader market. That's the disappointing thing here. So far today, not really. Low vol is the ultimate safe haven, but you would have liked to have seen some green somewhere else around here, right? So I can share concerns out there that this rally, it's been too narrow. There's not enough winners out there. In fact, it's even gotten worse. So these are the stocks above the 200-day moving average. Just about a month ago, they were approaching 70%. Now we're dipping under 50%. It's not good. The lack of participation is something, well, some say, forget about 1929, forget about 2000, forget about even 2007. This chart is more like 1997 when Fonzie went to Hollywood. All right, you got to be of a certain age, but the implication there was it was such a desperate stunt for this TV show that it proved that it was past its prime. In fact, Michael Burry brought it up in his newsletter saying this market is due for a crash because it's jumped the shark.
On this show, I would love to get your thoughts on this market action we're seeing. You know, we've got a red day, a lower day, but it doesn't necessarily feel dire at all as this rally seems unstoppable.
You're exactly right, Marley. You know, the market is trading on two assumptions here, that AI demand will continue and that the price of oil does not bleed into the private sector, that it doesn't impact inflation, and that hopefully the Iranian crisis is over sooner rather than later. If those two things continue to be true, I think this market rally climbs higher, and I could see an S&P 500 at 8,000 points, but I don't think that comes without a pullback. And hopefully it's not too big of a pullback. There's a lot of headwinds that we'll be facing here in a midterm year. But as you said, it continues to climb that wall of worry, has been the mantra for the last at least 2 to 3 quarters. As we've talked through this market rally.
Yeah, it certainly has. I mean, I keep waiting for the time we start talking about the pullback, but it seems to only be a one-off day episode that we get here, a couple days, and then we're off to the races again. So with those two assumptions that you just mentioned, an end coming or a cooling to the conflict in Iran, and also AI demand being underestimated, which one do you view as being more important right now?
Yeah, I think that the AI demand is the most important, because if you think about the underlying foundation of the market, Marley, there's an interesting fact that we have to pay attention to, and that is that for the third time since 1990, only 3 times has this happened. And, you know, you've got a lot of data in the 90s that is tech-driven here. But for the 3rd time since the 1990s, we've seen more lows hit in the S&P 500. More stocks hit their all-time or their 52-week low than the 52-week high, yet we continue to set these all-time high closes, and that is because of AI. AI is certainly the demanding factor here for the market rally to continue. And I'll give you another interesting fact. I thought this was very interesting when you look at this. You know, before the launch of ChatGPT back in late 2022, Marley, the S&P 500, if you think about all the market caps, semiconductors made up only 6% of the S&P 500. Now, this week, it just surpassed 22%. So if AI demand starts to suffer, or if we go back to late 2025 and investors aren't happy with AI spend, you could see the market begin to have a pullback, as we mentioned. That is not good for anybody because we are led higher due to tech. We could easily go to a low point in the market because of tech.
Dale, you just brought up my 2 most fascinating points from the notes you sent over. I had flagged both of them, that we're now roughly about a quarter of the S&P 500 being tied to semiconductors now, as opposed to that 6% you mentioned pre-ChatGPT in 2022. But also, I think of similar importance here that Friday was only the 3rd time since the year 1990 that the S&P hit a new high while posting more new lows than highs. So with those two things sort of hand in hand here, what does that tell you about breadth and also about how dramatically AI has reshaped the markets overall?
AI has reshaped the market for sure. And the breadth of the market, unfortunately, if you think back in the end of 2025, you start to see this breadth. You started to see a broadening out in the market. That is not the case anymore, and that's all basically happened over the last, say, 30 to 45 days. The market has went straight up due to AI demand, and what was being punished back in October of 25 is now being championed in these earnings calls. And you've got to consider a little bit of a cautionary approach to the market because of that, especially with the clients that we serve here, Marley. At RDS Wealth, our number 1 goal is to position our clients for the possibility of participation in this optimism, while also positioning them for protection if the market starts to pull back. And one of the major factors that could cause the market to pull back is this change in the sentiment, the change in the idea that we're rewarding AI spending. AI has changed the market, and if you're not participating in it, you're missing out on money. But if you participate too much, if you fight this greed monster and unfortunately lose to the greed monster, hoping that you can make more than you actually need in your overall plan, you're going to expose yourself.
And so you say that people are too interchangeably using the term bubble and mania right now. Take us through that, what each one means, and what we actually have in our current market setup.
Excellent question, Marley. Thank you for having me. So mania is driven by investor psychology. Investors believe it's going to go higher and higher, and they make improbable bets. They work out. They think they're geniuses, and they buy more. So that's a mania. Now, bubble is different. In bubble, you're looking at valuations, and the valuations get totally detached from any modicum of reality. So right now, we have a mania. We do not have a bubble. I know a lot of people interchangeably call it bubble mania, but we do not have a bubble. Valuations compared to growth rates, especially in AI stocks, semiconductors are still, on the high end, but they're not detached from reality right now. Now, 99 was different. 1999, we had a bubble because the valuations were totally detached from reality, plus we had a mania. So that's the difference.
Still have valuations, while albeit high, they're still tied to earnings. They're still tied to revenue growth. It's unlike this detachment and page views and clicks eras of the 1990s when we were actually in a bubble. So with that said, does this mean that, despite some of the pullback we're seeing today, that we have more room to run here?
We do. Manias can take markets higher than you would think. And the reason, again, is investor psychology. Think about what has happened since March 30th. So all those people who come in every morning and buy DT, same day expiring options, especially on, semiconductor stocks, they have made a lot of money. So this has become a habit. They're going to keep on doing that. And as they buy those options and, semiconductor stocks start moving up, then the market makers need to buy these stocks to hedge. And it's a cycle. And these people who have been doing this haven't lost enough money. So I was around, 1999 and 2008 and virus and 2022 bear market. So the people who get used to buying these aggressive options, in past cycles, they do not give up until they have lost all the money they have made. They do not give up. They keep on with the same behavior. So today we're seeing a little bit of a pullback. So, if somebody has made, just for the sake of it, $1 million, today they lost $20,000. So they don't care. So they have to lose all of that $1 million before this whole mania reverses.
So as we sit in this mania, we are seeing aggressive buying in semis. At what point does this momentum potentially become dangerous speculation?
Right. Well, it's already dangerous speculation in some ways. But, I made a call back in 2022, a very high conviction call that AI is real. We're going to make money all the way to 2030. So we're 2026. So now I start looking at fundamentals. So I see demand for these digital semiconductors, let's call memory, GPUs, CPUs, going up all the way to 2028. Not all the way to 2030. And I think in 2028, the demand is going to start slowing. And the stock market typically looks 6 to 12 months ahead. So perhaps sometime in 2027, market is going to get a whiff. The demand is going to slow. Right now, people say semiconductors are not cyclical, but they are cyclical. Believe me, they are cyclical. I've been trading them for more than 30 years. They are cyclical. And then we're going to have a very, very sharp drop in semiconductors. Right now, some of the earnings these semiconductor companies are showing, I wouldn't be surprised by 2029, some of these earnings we see 70, 80% drops. So there will be an excellent short selling opportunity. So in terms of time frame between now and a little bit longer, we need to stay long and enjoy the ride. And one more important thing, again, based on past manias, you make a lot of money in the last phase of the mania. So you don't want to give up your long positions a little early. And we have not seen the last phase of mania.